Okay, around the 90s, things changed. Well, it didn't really happen in the 90s, which is why you shouldn't be too tied to the historical progression here. But I've used supermodels to represent psychological models of individual behaviour change. So what psychological models did was that they complexified the process that the information deficit models posited was happening within individuals between the intent, or between their current state and the new action. One of the famous, you're probably all familiar, well, many of you are probably familiar with this model of behaviour change. It's Prochaska and Di Clementi's trans-theoretical model of health behaviour change. So it's not quite as linear. This one is a circular model, so different from the rational model. And this is a model that has been widely used, particularly in health interventions. It's basically a segmentation which arranges the public on a continuum according to the stage of change that they're at. And it's been especially popular with social marketers because it can enable targeting of particular population segments. So psychological models of behaviour change were posited against information deficit models based on the observation that people don't really use information in the way that the information deficit models presumed. And this was partly based on the observation that provision of information generally doesn't lead to very much of the desired behaviour. So in addition to making the claim that the rational models are not empirically valid, there's also an implication that they're not good predictors of what's going to happen. You know, because they don't represent how people really work, they would have limited predictive power. So early models of psychological behaviour change, or individual psychological behaviour change, assumed that attitudes drove behaviour. Very broadly, that was an idea that was later critiqued, and then there was a move towards models, given it all away. There was a move towards more complex models in which other factors like societal influences were introduced. So some of the implications of models of this kind is that it challenges to an extent the validity of the rational autonomous citizen that I mentioned before, traditionally a fundamental part of political society. And they raise a question, or they can raise a question, which I can only acknowledge but not resolve here, is that if that kind of citizenship is impossible, then should it also be discarded as an ideal?